explaining what the deal is all about, and we'll try as much as possible to just refer to what all parties have said and what the documents say. And so these are not words that I am explaining. I'm just telling you what the documents say.
Yeah.
Great. So let me start off with the Minerals Income Investment Act. It's very important we start off from there. And that's the Act 978 as assented in December 2018. Now, if you look at Section 3 of it, but let me just tell you the long term. An act to establish a fund to manage the equity interest of the Republic in mining companies to receive mineral royalty and other related income due the Republic from mining operations to provide for the management and investment of assets of the fund and for any related matters. Now, Section 3 of this particular Act, Kojo, talks about what the powers of the fund. It says the fund may, A, create and hold equity interest in a special purpose vehicle in any jurisdiction in furtherance of its objects, and special purpose vehicle shall be free to operate as a regular commercial company. And B, procure the listing of the special purpose vehicle on any reputable stock exchange that it considers appropriate.
Right.
What are the objects of the fund? It says the objects of the fund are to A, maximize the value of income due the Republic from the mineral wealth of the country for the benefit of its citizens. B, monetize the mineral income accruing to the Republic in a beneficial, responsible, transparent, accountable, and sustainable manner. So the law sets out what the Minerals Income Investment Fund can do and what it cannot do. And it says they could actually have a special purpose vehicle registered in any jurisdiction and listed on stock exchanges. And so the Mineral Income Investment Fund tasked with a mandate to ensure maximum benefits from our mineral royalty or mineral wealth, but also to do so in a transparent manner.
Right. And this law was passed in 2018.
This is not amended. I mean, the amendment was it was amended on the 14th of August in 2020.
All right. But what you've
was
read
not touched by the amendment, and that's why I'm reading.
And both sides of the House agreed to this?
Yes, they were all in the House at the time that this was passed. There were no challenges with this particular provision. The concerns had been with the amended aspect, and Honorable here would agree with me that that is where the issue is. So that having been settled, Kojo, then let's move on and look at the agreement, bits and pieces of the agreement. So, what does this agreement seek to do? The match talked about a JAPA. What it seeks to do, and I'd love to...
First of all, it's an agreement between who and who?
So let me read everything to you, and I started by saying that I want to be able to read verbatim from the document. So this is an amended and restated mineral royalty investment agreement between the Republic of Ghana, acting through and represented by the Ministry of Finance, the Republic, the Minerals Income and Investment Fund. That is the fund. Now, Japa Royalties Limited, LESCO. I'll explain that shortly.
Sure.
And ARG Royalties Ghana Limited, Royalty Co. Brackets. So, when I get to the explanation bit, I'll tell you that. So, when the Minerals Income Investment Fund takes the money, it's supposed to hand over the money to ARG Royalties Ghana Limited. The LESCO,
which is the company they own.
Yes, it's a company they own 100%.
By MIIF. Yes. Well, it's not yet listed, so in its current state.
Yes, in its current state. The listed company, after it is listed, would have 49% owned by investors and 51% owned by Ghana.
That's in the agreement or in the law?
I mean, in the agreement, it tells that after it is listed.
Okay.
Because we're seeking to, float shares of 49%.
Yes.
Of government stake.
So that's what the agreement says?
Yes.
Okay.
So, let's look at the value of it. It's very important we look at the value of the country's shares. And I'll take you straight up to, I just want to read everything, but I'll take you to the agreement that says that the shares are valued at $1 billion. $1 billion.
This is in the agreement?
This is in the agreement.
Okay.
All that I'm reading to you is in the agreement. The shares are valued at $1 billion. But Kojo, having said that, let's go to clause 3 of the agreement. Okay? It says, from the commencement date and for the allocation period, the fund, that's the Mineral Income Investment Fund, irrevocably subject to paragraph B2 below, assigns absolutely all of the rights, privileges, title, power, interest of any kind, whether personal or proprietary, which it now has and which it obtains at any time in the future in and to the percentage share of all gold mineral royalties received or to be received by the fund from time to time in respect of the allocated mining leases, including for the avoidance of doubt, any rights, privileges, title, power, and interest accruing to, derived from, or otherwise connected with allocated mines and leases. I'll explain that shortly.
So it assigns all these rights to who?
It assigns these rights to HAPA.
Okay.
So the fund is the one that is signing this. Then it goes on to grants. Listen to this. Grants. And explains further here. Grants and allocates and agrees to pay, transfer, and turn over to HAPA Royalty Co. the percentage share of all gold mineral royalties received or to be received by the fund from time to time of the allocated mining leases. Collectively, that is into brackets, parenthesis, the allocated mineral royalties, in each case subject to the terms and conditions of this agreement.
Okay.
The explanation you will get here, and the finance expert is here, the lawyer is here, is that over the period of the agreement, any mine allocated as part of the agreement whose royalty should go to HAPA, the period of that particular lease that has been granted the mining company, all royalties collected from it should go to HAPA Royalty Co. You get that understanding?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then it talks about payment of allocated mineral royalties. Again, we just want to read a bit, then I get into other issues that are concerned by the minority. It says, the fund shall pay or procure the payment of, on the fund's behalf, the allocated mineral royalties to Royalty Co. in dollars with no deduction of any commission or expense relating to any necessary foreign currency conversion or any other related bank charge, and immediately available funds without demand, reduction or any set of withholding or deduction of any nature whatsoever, except any deduction or withholding required by law, and except as set out in clause 32b below, subject to clause 8 taxes. What is clause 2b? It says the fund's obligation to pay and transfer the allocated mineral royalties to Royalty Co. accrues upon receipt by the fund of gold mineral royalties or as otherwise set out in this agreement, and all allocated mineral royalties shall be due and payable in accordance with the provision of the document.
Right. That's a lot of legalese. Exactly. What exactly does it mean?
So, when the fund receives money, it is supposed to transfer that exact amount to HAPA. Okay. There should be nothing like charges or anything.
Withholding taxes.
Exact amount should be given.
Right.
The amount that you received, so the 75.6% of the mineral royalty.
Yeah.
And over here, I'd like to explain one thing, because the 2% and 2.4% will be given to the MIIF, that's the Minerals Income Investment Fund, and the Ghana Revenue Authority, and the remainder would go to traditional authorities and district assemblies.
That's supposed to be 20%.
20%.
Right?
So government share becomes 75.6%.
Right.
All of that should go to HAPA,
right.
Royalty Co.
Right.
I'm sure we understand up to this point. So, what are the concerns in all of this, Kojo? Now, the minorities raised a few concerns. And I started by saying that the value of our mineral royalty has been valued at $1 billion for purposes of this agreement. Now, the minority in Parliament is questioning the valuation. What they are asking is, how did you come by that valuation? How did government come by that valuation?
Of $1 billion.
Of $1 billion. Because when I read the agreement to you, what I read to you is the fact that it says, over the period of the mining lease or agreement, the allocated mines from which royalties are supposed to be paid, they must do so. So government minority is asking, how did you come by that? They want to know. And in their statement, they do their own analysis and say, even if they were to use 150 million for 15 years and discount it by 5%, they get 1.7 billion. If we're discounting by 3%, we get about more than 2 billion.
Right.
So the discounting we're talking about is that they've taken the amount, they've looked at the future value, as in if we're to accrue for 15-year period, and have said, because consistently the future value of a certain amount and the present value of the same amount differs, let's look at the present value of this particular amount that we're talking about. And they say that present value would be 1.7 billion or in excess of 2 billion. So how did government come by that particular valuation? That's the first concern of the minority. And they're asking the cost of the transaction. They say their sources indicate that there's been a payment of some $5 million, contrary to the ministry's own statement that is put out that $2 million has been paid so far. They want clarity on that particular one. And they've also raised concerns about registering the company in a tax haven jurisdiction. And finally, they talk about transparency. They say, where is the prospectus? We want to see the dividend policy. So, Kojo, when you're listing on a stock exchange, your prospectus would indicate all these things. It would show you your dividend policies, whether there's going to be a period which you would not pay dividends and all of that. What you would use in calculating your dividend policy would all be stated in the prospectus. And they are saying, where is the prospectus? In the absence of the prospectus, they cannot tell what is really happening. And there is another concern about the fact that why does government itself not state that, in its 2020 budget, plans that it has in using this particular special purpose vehicle. But what I would want to do, Kojo, because we need to start a conversation, is the fact that if you look at the 2020 budget statement, as part of my preparation for all of this, if you go to paragraph 192, Kojo, paragraph 192, it will tell you something about Ejapa or something about mineral royalties. So let me just quickly, and I like to read verbatim, get to paragraph 192 in the 2020 budget statement. Read that out to you. Okay. So paragraph 192. It says, Mr. Speaker, as you may recall, in September 2018, the Minerals Income Investment Fund Act 2018, Act 978, the Fund Act was passed by this august House. The Minerals Income Investment Fund, which was established in 2018 by the Fund Act, was created to hold and manage the mining company equity interest of the Republic, receive mineral royalty revenues due from mining operations, and provide for the management and investment of assets of MIIF. Now, the monetization of mineral royalties remain a priority project for the government. Significant progress has been made since the inauguration of the MIIF board by the President in October this year. The anticipated monetization proceeds will complement government sources of financing for the budget. Government telling you that it needs money for the budget. But 194 says, okay, let me just look at it. So it says, the Chief Executive Officer of the board of the entity has been put in place. It is the expectation of the government that the objective would be realized in 2020. So an indication of what it intends to do, the monetization that it talks about. Now, civil society organizations, let me just wrap up on this. Civil society organizations have also raised a few concerns. One of the things they've said is that, look, they need transparency in all of this. They have said that this seems to be an opaque deal. You don't really know what is happening. And thus have called for consultations. They have said government should be engaging them. They also raised concerns about the registration of the company in a tax haven. And Kojo, before you continue, just by way of setting the tone for the discussion. So if you're determining the value of a firm, you would look at, that you're going to list, you look at its brand, you look at its prospect, okay? So you, for instance, would ask yourself, is it a going concern, like we say in accounting? Is it something that is expected to last over a long period of time? If that is the case, then you look also at the timing of the issue and be able to determine a price for it. So if you look at the trends, there's certain times that you say, okay, this could be a time that people might be interested, particularly also because of the happenings in the investment world. Now, having done that, one concern also that experts have raised in all of this is the fact that you're giving your mining lease to this company. even though it's owned by the state. The question is, over the period, all the mines, do they have the same lifespan? The cash flows, are they expected to all terminate at a point? These are questions begging for answers.
Okay, well, we're joined by Mr. Yao Boabeng Asamoah. He speaks for the NPP, and of course, we've already said hello to Mr. Kessel Atto Forson. Mr. Boabeng Asamoah happens to be my member of parliament. It's always nice to see you. Good morning.
You have fallen down your duties.
Hey.
You haven't set up a campaign team. You haven't produced any campaign funds. No logistics. I ain't seen anything.
These duties are not mine. Somebody's duties have been added to mine by accident. Let's have another look. But thank you so much for making the time to be here. We appreciate it. And I think we will start with you if you don't mind, because I think the purpose of this conversation, by the end of it, we want people to have enough information to make up their minds about the propriety or otherwise of this deal.
Yeah.
Now, the first thing I would love for you to help us with is your reaction to the calls, not just from opposition but also from civil society, to pump the brakes, to take a minute, since there is clearly not consensus on this matter, to take a minute, stop the timeline and the clock ticking to December and all that, and break it all down and win people over to your way of thinking before, as a nation, we can then agree and move forward with this. Why the rush?
Thank you very much, and very good morning to our listeners. First of all, let me say a very good hello to the people of Adentan, by whose grace I'm sitting here. And hopefully they'll continue me in that grace. Yes. Now, why the haste presupposes that we now accept that it's a viable proposition.
Well, I think people are still asking questions, and that's why they are asking for a slowing down.
So let us go take a step back before we look at the haste. Yeah? If that's acceptable. Winston has the document, and my honorable colleague from Parliament also has the document.
Yeah, I have them too.
There has been the question of Ghana Gold and the twist that's being put on it at the moment. I see Ghana Gold, the discovery of that, in several facets, but in particular as a vindication of this need. This is so important that as far back as 10 years ago, the NDC government sought to do it but couldn't go through with the process. It's a vindication of the need. And if you read the parliamentary memo, I'm sure Atu has his copy, the memo to Parliament, paragraphs under paragraph 2, background information, A and B, listen to this. The Republic conventionally obtains funding to execute its development mandate from debt capital markets, subject to terms and conditions, including the obligation to repay the principal borrowed with interest thereon. The Republic seeks to diversify its capital portfolio by obtaining long-term capital without repayment obligations through equity capital market transactions. That principle is what is at stake here, because we are happily playing in the international market for debt. And when you play debt, there's a cost to it, interest. And so part of the sideshow is the local debate about who owes what and how much you've borrowed, in order to make heavy-duty investments. We are now developing. We need the investment. So that principle is established. Now, there are two things. You have debt and you have equity. Now we are comfortable playing the international market on debt. We want to move to equity. What is the risk? What is associated with equity? Risk. So if you play debt, you pay cost. If you play equity, you play and you get risk. You may either make a lot of money or you may lose your share. That's investment, right? So that principle is established and it's vindicated by the NDC's own attempt before. Now, let us sit back and look at who we are and what we have done. Timber. We've run out of timber. There was no arrangement whatsoever for onward generations to benefit from timber. When I see films where whole buildings, walls inside are clad in odum, polished odum, I reflect on what we've lost.